Hello everybody, this is Simon with Let's Play Sonic 2006. It's time for our second character's story, which of course starts in his home time. Silver's first level is already Crisis City, which is still quite iconic in its presentation, so that's a great start. And apart from that, it's also quite a good level. This boy has his problems, but I don't think this debut stage is much of one. As we've seen in his cameo in Sonic's Kingdom Valley, Silver's main thing is picking up and throwing objects with telekinesis. While you're holding down the R trigger, he gets a green glow and most physics objects around him start hovering ready to be used. Each one depletes a bit of his actually working special gauge, limiting the total number of objects you can carry. After you've picked up an object, you can release R2 to stop picking up more. You throw with the action button. So far, so good. What we can also see right now is that Silver's gameplay is mostly about exploration. There is tons of hidden nooks and crannies, sometimes you have to hover to them, sometimes you can just find them off camera. And I quite like this actually, because exploration is one of the biggest strengths of this game. Because the levels are quite detailed and the level designers do their best to reward said exploration. The issue I have with it is that the camera is a bit sluggish, so that I constantly have to keep turning it to see all of said nooks and crannies, which will lead to a lot of awkward cuts, because centering the camera behind Silver is the quickest way to turn it, and they didn't program an animation for it, so it just snaps. By the way, here, the tutorial tells you that this road is unstable, but it has already broken down. This is a recurring issue in Silver's levels, that they set up a bunch of cool set pieces, and all of the set pieces basically happen without your input most of the time, because the physics are so janky. We are going to see a lot more of that. But enough complaining, let's keep going. Another aspect of Silver is of course his hovering, which also depletes the meter. As you can tell, I'm out of meter right now because I have hovered and then picked up 3 more objects. And this is something that is actually quite interesting to concern yourself with, because you can't hover if you have picked up too many objects beforehand. Something I'm showing off here is that the ball physics regarding slopes and you standing on them are actually quite generous, which is something that speedrunners use to launch themselves all throughout the level. I don't quite know how to do it. It would probably be easy enough to learn, but I'm not here to speedrun. Just something to keep in mind. Something else I've already told you is that you can release the trigger after activating one of these plates, and something else we just saw is that Silver is actually quite good at jumping. This is something you have to internalize for quite a bit, because there's a bunch of jumps to secrets, but also to progression, that you don't think he would be able to do, but he can actually do them quite easily. You can also pick up enemy projectiles, as I've just done, which is quite nice, and you can wreak complete havoc if you just throw stuff through an entire crowd of enemies. This is another example of a set piece that just breaks in front of your eyes. You're obviously supposed to throw something at the pipe to make it fall, but it falls on its own, so yeah. Also something I'm demonstrating here, Silver does have a melee attack. He can slap enemies to stun them, and any stunned enemies can be picked up and thrown, which is great, with the one problem that the melee attack has a range of about 3 centimeters outward from his palm, which means that it is by all practical purposes completely useless and you should never use it. I'm going to give it a little bit of a workout here. Oh, by the way, working set piece. This has been tutorialized by the first bridge that you can throw this. Yeah, and then often enemies get taken out by physics objects, which is fun, with the big problem that you don't get any points for that. We're going to see an issue with that later on, where just a large crowd of big enemies gets taken out by a pipe, and ideally you would want their points, but well, level design. Something that's also really interesting here, if you just wait around for a bit, another object shows up, giving you easy access to this semi-hidden 20 ring box. That's quite nice. I don't think it happens anywhere else in the game, but I really enjoy it. Also, let's talk about combat in general. These Iblis worms will only be hurt for 1/3 of their health bar if you throw something at them at any time, but if their mouth is open, like if they have just shot their projectile, they will be instantly killed by it. And whoa, that was not me, that was the camera auto-adjusting, but never mind that. And I quite like that because it gives you a certain dynamic to the combat where you have to pick and choose your timing instead of just throwing whenever. Another demonstration of hitboxes here. And finally I'm close enough. It's not good. Yeah. Other than that, generally Silver I quite like just going around picking up stuff, always having some ammo ready, and then you can just kill enemies as they show up. That's quite nice. Something that's a little annoying here. There you can barely see it, a silver medal up there. And this one I always missed. It's very, very hard to find because you never see it naturally. You have to use this box to hover up. It gives you a little bit more height than Silver's jump. It always looks a little bit weird, but this is definitely an intended way to get these silver medals. You have to do this for a few of them. So it is definitely a technique that developers were very aware of existing. The issue is that I did not find the silver medal because the camera just is not located low enough for you, even if you strain. But yeah, can't be helped, I guess. I am using a guide for those. Yeah, I'll usually get 7 out of 10 or something on my own first trial run, and then for the rest I'll just have to look up where they are. I am okay at exploration and I enjoy it, but at some point you just have to admit that this game is unfinished and there is always going to be 1 or 2 just completely asinine hidden silver medals where you would never find on their own. Another point of combat is that the big enemies, the Iblis giants, they are also particularly vulnerable when they have just fired their projectile, giving them basically the same best tactic to defeat in waiting for their projectile and throwing it back immediately, but you can also throw something else while their eye is open, as Sonic has put it in Flame Core, which just means that their glowing lava part at the top is exposed. Another example of Silver's excellent jumping abilities, and another set piece for us to enjoy. Actually, it's kind of boring. Oh hey, there is actually a Chow Garden in this game. People were lamenting that there is none. Let's visit it. Yeah. Here another example of excellent targeting. You can absolutely destroy the bird enemy and the wall at the same time, but I don't know quite how to consistently do it, but that's okay. I don't know why these boxes are here, but they give me a nice opportunity to say screw the springs and go up here on my own. The spring is probably faster, but it's fun. It's fun. In general, there is a lot of corners with a lot of boxes where it seems like they put them there because they expected you to use them against enemies and then they forgot to program the enemies. But maybe this is something we will see in the hard mode. Because the hard mode and the normal mode versions were developed concurrently. After all, they are in the same game. The hard mode is not a DLC. I suspect that sometimes they cut out stuff out of the hard mode to make the normal mode levels and vice versa, so there might be some omissions here and there, which only makes sense once you see the hard mode. And off into the second part of the level. This was fun so far, right? But how about we make it actually great, because this part of Silver's Crisis City introduces us to our secondary helper character for his story, which is Blaze, and Blaze is by far the best character in the game, possibly including Sonic. I really like playing as Blaze, and I'm not alone in my opinion, because she just has a huge arsenal of fun stuff to play around with. For example, a double jump, so that's very nice. It works quite well, it has excellent air control in fact. It is just floaty enough. She's generally very fast, as we can see here. Works quite well. And another thing she has going for her is that she has a homing attack as well as this attack. If you do not move when you attack it, when you launch it, she's sadly locked in place, which is going to be a little bit of an issue later on. Where does this grind rail go? Just back here. Weird. But if you are moving while you activate it by holding down the action button, then she works exactly like Sonic's anti-gravity does, with all of the perks, by which I mean you can just glide through enemies and keep damaging them, and it's very nice. She also has this spinning claw attack, which is also activated on the action button, which is a bit of an issue, not gonna lie, but it is really nice because it has actually very elaborate animations, like Sonic's animations for the homing attack were supposed to be, which you can only unlock with the white gem, but hers function quite normally. This is, by the way, how you normally get up here. I took a bit of a shortcut. Because it is also on an action button, that gives you full control if you want to do a double jump or an attack. It's quite nice. It's something Sonic Unleashed also does with its homing attack on a separate button. This never works. It's a bit weird. It will actually work in the S-Rank run, so I don't quite know why it didn't work here. One problem with the spinning tornado is that, yeah, it doesn't make you invincible. So it is a bit more balanced than anti-gravity is. So again, in a sense, Blaze is the more complete character in many ways. It's really weird. Not to say that the homing attack doesn't have its issues, like the targeting here screwed up for a bit, sending me into a spinning claw instead of an attack. And this can be an issue, but in general, if you know what you're doing, you can spin claw a lot around these levels. Be really fast, it's really cool. But something bad that happens here, I want to do a homing attack here, but I held down the button for too long, so instead she's doing the fire tornado out of the air, which is fun that she can do it. It's far better than Sonic, because when you hold down the button in the air, he will always do a bounce attack, which is bad again. But because it is the same button as the homing attack, that means that I just plunged to my doom without being able to do much of anything about it. That's the one big problem with Blaze, which is a problem with every Sonic game. Why does every action have to be on the same button? I don't know. There is a perfectly functional A button. Why don't they ever use it? It makes no sense to me, but that's just what we have to deal with. But generally, playing as Blaze, phenomenal. I really like it. Too bad it's over. I'm trying to skip around the trigger here, but I don't know how. Speedrunners do. They just keep playing the level as Blaze. It's great. I should look into this because it's just so much more fun. There's something coming up which I know, and that is this this flying silver medal here, which is surprisingly hard to get because your jump just never quite reaches it. You need to ride on an object again, as I said. This is absolutely mandatory. This is not an exploit. You can maybe use this exploding box here. You can also carry a box to the opposite balcony. You can see it in the distance right now. But using the car at the very start is probably the easiest way to do it. The slap is fine against these worms, because they are largely stationary. Their hitboxes are okay as far as the distance from silver goes, and it's very easy to see where it starts, so that's nice. I missed something here. Good thing I have a guide open on the other tab. I already got a silver medal in this area, and there is another silver medal was in view just ahead, very plainly not hidden at all. So you would think that this area has all of its silver medals covered, but no, there's just 3 of them in a very, very tiny amount of space. It's a bit weird, but what you gonna do? I don't quite know if I missed what's it called, audio cue or not, but it would be really helpful here. But yeah, the game is not perfect after all. Wow, the wheels are still spinning. Amazing. Anyway, you can of course skip a lot of this area, and we're going to see that in the S-Rank run. But for now, let's just keep continuing with it. We are actually nearing the end of the level, which is a bit weird because there is no real climax to anything of this. But before we go to that, I have a little bit of an issue here. The issue is that, as you can see, I am glowing. I am holding down the R trigger, but Silver is steadfastly refusing to pick up the projectiles of the enemies here. And I will keep trying, but it just doesn't quite work. First of all, you have to repress the trigger after you send out stuff. That's always a little annoying, but now he picked up something and it just doesn't kill the enemy. And this is a persistent problem I have with Silver, because the combat just is janky enough that sometimes it does not work at all. If you fling it from a further distance, then finally it has enough of an impact to kill the enemy, but often if the projectile is too fast, you can't quite pick it up. It's not perfect. It doesn't give you a perfect projectile shield, even for stuff where you really think it should. And this is a big problem because it leads to you getting hit all the time, with you not really feeling responsible for that, because, I mean, you held down the button, the projectile flew into your aura of picking stuff up, but it just didn't happen. And that makes Silver combat often needlessly frustrating. Also, getting hit by cars from a tornado is also a persistent problem of this level, of course, but let's just not talk about this. In general, I feel like getting a ring bonus in Silver's level is extremely hard because you keep getting hit by random stuff which you really should be able to defend yourself from by just using his natural mechanics, but it's just not quite there. And for some projectiles like the birds ones, it's a crapshoot if it works at all. It's just... you just gotta have to deal with these idiosyncrasies. By the way, there is a lot of one-ups in this stage. I wonder if they were like, man, this is really hard. By the way, here, whoa, another set piece that doesn't work at all. Like, you were probably supposed to circle around and then kill the pipe your own and hit it your own on your own after you have gained this invincibility, and then it kills all of the enemies and you're like, oh, this is awesome. But because it will not reward you any points, it is also quite useless. So I don't know, man. Something that does work here is the shield around these big enemies, because otherwise it would be one hit. So in that sense the combat is balanced. And now it worked. Why did it work? Because it was preparing an attack. You can't see it, but it has already opened its eyes, and once it opens its eye, then you can definitely stun it. So another technical aspect of the combat is again waiting for the enemy to be vulnerable, and then you can insta-kill it. Watch out! Oh, yeah. I feel it's barely possible to avoid getting hit here. I've tried quite a few times and I think I've managed it once in my replays of this level. It is almost a foregone conclusion that you will get hit, and no, you can't pick up the cast by holding down the telekinesis button. It just doesn't work, and that's a shame, isn't it? Another persistent problem is that flung objects fly against each other. We've seen that in the Kingdom Valley video. Again, something with which you just have to learn to contend with. Too many objects and they block each other because the physics engine of this game is just not well thought through. Can't be helped. And with that anticlimax of just a wall and a few enemies, we end the level. And this is a substantial time bonus, wouldn't you say, for a 14-minute stage? There is something we might be able to do with that, so stay tuned for that for the S-Rank video. For now, however, we are going to end this on a nice note. Our first medal for Silver Story, and a cutscene after which I will see you. Stay tuned!
Come on, you monster!
Before we start the S-Rank run, I'd like to ask you quickly to bolster my motivation to continue with these videos by giving me some attention numbers. Thanks! Alright, how to S-Rank? I've already hinted at it, but how about we just go fast? I know, novel concept in a Sonic game. So Silver's combat is quite clunky, a little bit annoying, and can lead to very unpredictable results. So how about this proposition? We just skip most of it. I just keep going. Actually, you can skip even more of the level, but I don't want to be a complete speedrunner here, but you can absolutely just hover to the platform over there, ignore all of this nonsense here, the slow animation and so on. This is probably a very good idea. And keep going. So my tactic for S ranking here, and oh wow, actually this bridge stayed up for quite a bit. My tactic for S ranking here is just to keep going, ignore most of the stuff. What I do is pick up some obvious ring boxes, kill some enemies that are in my way and easily killable. For example here, is he easily killable? Nope, did not work, then I'll keep going. And keep up that pace, which makes the level incidentally even more fun in my opinion, unless you are super into the combat, which, you know, more power to you. But it's getting quite repetitive already, and this is the first level. And otherwise, just try to run as quickly as possible to the end of the level, giving you a high time bonus, and only stop for enemies that are easy to kill in your way and give a lot of points. So not these bozos down there, for example, but what you can do is kill any worm, which gives 300 points because he takes 3 hits, and any giant, which takes 4 hits and thus gives 1000 points. I tried to see if I could hover over there, but I noticed my meter was not quite doing it, so let's do it at some other point. And keep going here, ignore these guys, they're going to get killed, not give me any points, but it doesn't matter, it's just 100 points. And here is my opportunity to shortcut a little bit, because going through the building is a little bit slow, so I'm going around instead. Get some rings, just for the 10 points each. This guy here is in the way, so one quick slap and we get 300 points for free, another 200 from the extra life, and on we go. Just basically pick your battles and keep going, and as I said, with this reasonable pace, you will both get more success and more fun in these levels. If you are playing casually, this is how I recommend to play Silver. Pick your battles. If you see something where it's like, oh, this looks like it would be fun to throw a physics object into, then by all means do it. It is fun. It can be a lot of fun. And if you see something where like, you know what, this looks tedious, then just don't do it. Unless, of course, you have to open a spring or something. But you can absolutely just jump on the spring box and hover from it to this platform. And this is another part where I think Silver is a lot of fun, because not only is exploration for pickups and ring boxes and extra lives and so on a lot of fun, but whoa, glad that he can hover and catch himself when the ground is a little bit wonky, by the way. But it's also a lot of fun to try and find shortcuts. Silver's shortcuts are usually not in the form of rainbow rings. I think he only has rainbow rings in one special, one town mission. But his shortcuts are more of a diegetic nature, if you excuse me using this overused word, where you basically have to look at the level geometry and think like, can I not just make this? And very often you actually can, and so that's quite nice. The only thing you have to watch out for is your meter, and again, because it actually works, that means that the developers were able to program in some very obviously intended shortcuts for you to take, and some others where you're like, yeah, you can be a little bit creative and work around it a little bit, because this is Sonic 06 and it is barely tested, and that means that there is probably quite a few unintended shortcuts you can take, and it's always a bit up for debate which one is actually intended or not. I won't be able to show all of them, of course, because it's just up to everybody to find themselves the shortcuts that work for them. It's also something that is, of course, a question of consistency. If you can barely make a hover and like fall down 50% of the time, then might not be a good idea to do this in a 10-minute level. Though I'm going to finish this one under 7. Spoilers, you can see the end of the video length, but there are going to be levels that are mandatorily even longer than this. This is just a preview of how long Silver levels can really be, which is a bit of an issue. Again, misclick on my part, you barely get to use Blaze, it's a crying shame, so I'm not super practiced with her. I wanted to do the same shortcut I did in the normal video, but instead she did the fire tornado. Well, at least there was ground underneath, but it's not a big deal. It gave me a few more points, a few more kills. Always go for the leader enemies if you can, of course. Going through the building here with all of the users, enemies spawning, and hey, this time it actually worked, so that's nice. Now I know that of course I can't fire tornado through here, but I'm still gonna do it. Amazing. I never quite know what the explosion hitbox on those boxes actually is, so that's a bit weird, and yeah, let's just draw this. I think this one is not a leader enemy, most of the birds are still alive. I could have gone back for the 200 extra points for the 1-up box, but doesn't really matter. I deliberately land here instead of doing another double jump, because I don't think that I would have made it, and you gotta be careful here and make sure that you don't die to something dumb and lose all of your points almost to the end of the level when you're doing an S rank. Again, if you want to be super efficient, super quick, you probably want to look at the speedrun video where they just skip the changing trigger, because Blaze can absolutely do the end of the level. There is nothing you need Silver for. But generally this portion here is full on exploration, hidden nooks and crannies, silver medals and so on. But because we already got all of them, I can just book it through here, and something that took me like 3 minutes to fully explore while I also was playing around, by which I mean failing with the projectiles of the enemies, now is a 30-second quick affair. And again, I killed the giant in one hit because he had already opened his eye. Another thing you can do here is get hit by a car out of nowhere, amazing, is skip the long ass animation of using the trigger here, because you can just hover. You should be looking for these opportunities, it adds up, definitely. But here at the end we can see almost to the end of the level, almost 10,000 points, that's nice. And ah man, the pipe killed another 1,000 points, that's annoying, but there's absolutely nothing you can do about it, of course. The pipe does what it wants. In the normal video it did not kill the giant, now it did. Can't be helped. Wow, even 10,000 points. I don't know where the rest of the points were coming from, I think from the rings here, but that's nice, isn't it? And another little bit of buffer here, but generally, possibly you just want to book it because time bonus is a little bit more efficient than trying to kill every single worm with this anemic slap attack. You can of course also wait until you get a much better melee option for Silver later on in his story. If you are doing this casually and really want to do the S ranks, just replay the levels later on when you have all the options. But anyway, look at this 40,000 time bonus. It's really rewarding to go extremely fast as Silver, and I strongly recommend it. And with that, the video is over. Thank you very much for your attention.